What if I told you that almost everything you believe about sluggish, deep-dwelling winter pike is flat out wrong? What if the reason you're going home empty-handed isn't your bait, your spot, or your luck? It's because you don't know the one major secret that dictates their every move in the dead of winter. In this video, we're pulling back the curtain. I'm going to show you the truth about what's happening under the ice, and I promise it's not what the old-timers taught you. By the end of this, you'll understand why 90% of anglers are fishing in the wrong places at the wrong times. So let me ask you, do you think pike are just lazy and dormant in winter? Or is there something more to it? Let me know what you think in the comments right now before we dive in. Look, we've all been there. It's the middle of January, the cold is biting, and you're staring at a field of motionless tip-ups. This period, what we call gloom winter or the dead of winter, is notoriously tough. The frustration is real. And for generations we've been told the same story. The pike's metabolism slows way down, they sink to the deepest holes in the lake, and they barely move, waiting for an easy meal to drift by. So we follow that advice. We drill our holes over 30, 40, even 50 feet of water. We soak the biggest, oiliest bait we can find, and we wait, and wait, and wait, because it's what our grandfathers did, and it's what we see everyone else doing. It works just often enough to keep the myth alive, but it's the reason so many fishing trips end in disappointment. Let's start with the reality of the situation. That brutal midwinter slump is not just in your head. It is a very real phenomenon that sends most anglers packing their gear away until spring. You sit on your bucket, the sun is barely warming your face, and the silence on the lake is deafening. There are no flags popping, no action on the sonar, nothing. It feels like the entire lake is asleep. This shared experience of failure is the foundation of the myth. We collectively decide the fish just aren't feeding, but what if they are? What if they're feeding aggressively, but we're all just sitting in the wrong part of the stadium, watching an empty field while the real game is happening somewhere else? That's the feeling you get right before you discover the truth about their behavior. The first step is to accept that the slump is real, but the reason for it is not what you think. Now let's tackle the biggest deception of them all, the deep water myth. Ask any 10 anglers where to find pike in midwinter, and at least 8 of them will point to the deepest basin in the lake. The logic seems sound, right? Deeper water is more stable, it's warmer than the water just under the ice, and it's where bait fish supposedly gather to escape the cold. So we all congregate there, drilling hole after hole, in the deepest water we can find, creating what's essentially a fishing ghost town. We're all fishing in a desert. While it's true that some fish will be deep, the massive, active, feeding pike often are not. This deep water basin is a trap. It's a low percentage play based on an incomplete understanding of what a pike truly needs to survive and, more importantly, to hunt in the harsh winter environment. To understand the secret, you have to stop thinking like a human and start thinking like a pike. Let's imagine their world for a moment. Above them is a thick, solid ceiling of ice, often covered by a blanket of snow that blocks out almost all light. The water is frigid, hovering just a few degrees above freezing. And most importantly, their world is slowly but surely running out of breath. Think about it. The lake is sealed off from the atmosphere. There's no wind mixing the water, no waves creating oxygen. Instead, you have dead weeds and other organic matter on the bottom, slowly decaying and consuming the very oxygen the fish need to live. It's a dark, cold, and gradually suffocating environment. This is not a comfortable winter lodge. For many fish, it's a fight for survival. This brings us to the first and arguably most important part of the secret. Oxygen is everything. Far more than temperature or even food, the concentration of dissolved oxygen dictates where you will find life under the ice. As winter progresses, that decomposition on the bottom of weedy bays and deep basins burns through the available oxygen, creating what are essentially dead zones. A pike is a powerful predator, but it cannot survive without oxygen. It will actively flee these oxygen-depleted areas, no matter how fishy they look on a map. You could be presenting the most perfect bait in the world, but if the pike can't breathe there, it's not going to be there. This is the piece of the puzzle that 99% of winter anglers completely ignore. They're focused on structure, but they should be focused on life support. So if the deep basins and weedy flats are losing oxygen, where does a pike go to get a breath of fresh air? This is where you have to re-examine the lake. The life-giving oxygen in a sealed-off winter lake comes from very specific sources. Think about any source of moving water, no matter how small, a creek or river inlet, an underwater spring, even a narrowing between two islands where current is forced to accelerate. These areas are constantly churning new oxygen-rich water into the system. Even a significant crack in the ice that refreezes can introduce a small amount of oxygen. The pike know this. They are instinctively drawn to these life-sustaining zones. Imagine you're in a smoky room. You're not going to sit in the middle of it. You're going to find the open window. That's exactly what the pike are doing. So the first part of the secret is that pike location is primarily dictated by oxygen, not depth. Let's paint a picture. A pike is faced with a choice. It can sit in the warmer 30-foot deep basin where the oxygen is low and it feels sluggish, or it can move into a 12-foot deep channel near a creek mouth where the water might be a degree colder, but it's rich with oxygen. Which one will it choose? It will choose the oxygen every single time. A pike in an oxygen-rich environment is a more active, more alert, and more aggressive predator. It has the energy to hunt. The pike you're looking for, the one that's going to slam your bait, is not the one struggling to breathe in the depths. It's the one thriving in an oxygen hotspot, which is often much shallower than you'd expect. With oxygen sorted, we move to the second clue, the crucial role of light. Pike are quintessential sight feeders. Their entire predatory strategy is built around seeing their prey and attacking with explosive speed. But what happens when you put a thick layer of ice and a foot of snow on top of the lake? You create an environment that is incredibly dark, bordering on pitch black in some areas. The old myth says pike don't need to see, that they just use their lateral line to sense vibrations. While their lateral line is important, the most aggressive fish still rely heavily on their vision. They are not going to hang out in total darkness if they can help it. They need an edge, a place where they can use their superior eyesight to their advantage, even in the dim underwater world. So how do they adapt to the low light? This is where it gets really interesting. They don't just give up and wait for spring. Instead, they seek out areas with subtle but significant light advantages. They become masters of the shadows. For example, an area of the lake with wind-blown, clear black ice will allow much more light to penetrate than an area covered in a deep snowdrift. The pike understand this better than we do. They will position themselves on the edges of these light and dark zones. Think about a field at dusk. Predators don't stand in the middle of the bright field or hide in the darkest part of the woods. They hunt the edge, using the darkness as cover to ambush prey that is silhouetted against the lighter area. Pike do the exact same thing under the ice. This leads us to what I call the shadow line phenomenon. This is one of the most overlooked structural elements in all of ice fishing. Where you have a distinct difference in snow cover on the surface, you have a distinct shadow line on the bottom. Pike will treat this edge like a weed line. They will patrol it using the darker, snow-covered side for camouflage, while they watch the brighter, clearer ice side for any sign of bait fish. A lone perch swimming out from under the shadow of a snowdrift is an easy target. Most anglers walk right over these spots without a second thought, but for a winter pike, this is a prime piece of hunting real estate. You could have two holes drilled 10 feet apart, but if one is in the dark and one is on the shadow line, the results will be dramatically different. Now let's combine the first two pieces of our secret. The ultimate winter pike location is not just a place with good oxygen, it's a place with good oxygen that also has a distinct light advantage. Imagine finding a spot where a small creek inlet brings in fresh, oxygenated water, and it's located right next to a wind-swept point where the ice is mostly clear. This creates a shadow line in an oxygen-rich zone. That right there is the X that marks the spot. This is the 5-star hotel for big, active winter pike. They have everything they need, the ability to breathe easy and a perfect ambush point. This is a far cry from just randomly drilling holes in the middle of the lake's deepest basin. This is strategic, targeted fishing based on the pike's actual needs. Okay, so they're in specific locations, but what about the myth that they're lethargic and slow? This is a huge misunderstanding of predator behavior. Winter pike aren't lazy, they are incredibly efficient energy conservers. They can't afford to waste energy chasing small meals all day. Think of a snow leopard in the mountains. It might lie still for hours, even days. You wouldn't call it lazy, you'd call it a patient, calculating hunter waiting for the perfect opportunity. Winter pike are the same. They enter a state of energy conservation, but they maintain the ability to unleash incredible bursts of speed for a short period when a high-value meal presents itself. They aren't sleeping on the bottom. They are coiled springs waiting for the right trigger. Because they are conserving so much energy, their actual feeding windows become incredibly short and intense. A midwinter pike might only feed for a single 15 to 30-minute period in a 24-hour cycle. That's it. If you are not there with your bait in the water during that precise window, you will think there are no fish in the lake. You can fish the perfect spot for 7 hours and 50 minutes and get nothing. Then, in a flash, you could get 3 flags in 10 minutes as the entire food chain erupts into activity. The secret, then, isn't just about finding the right location, it's about being in that location at the exact right time. The big question is, what triggers that window? What is the dinner bell that rings under the ice? This brings us to the third and final piece of the puzzle: barometric pressure. We all hear anglers talk about pressure, but it becomes exponentially more important in the stable environment of a frozen-over lake. Fish are incredibly sensitive to changes in atmospheric pressure because it directly affects their swim bladder. In the dead of winter, when everything else is static and unchanging, a subtle shift in barometric pressure is like a massive signal to the entire aquatic ecosystem. It's a sign that things are about to change, and for predators, change often means opportunity. Ignoring the barometer in winter is like trying to hunt with a blindfold on. You're missing the single most important environmental trigger for fish activity. So how do you use this to your advantage? Forget the old wisdom about needing bright, sunny, stable, high-pressure days. While stable weather can be okay, the real magic happens right before a front moves in. A sudden and steady drop in barometric pressure, the kind that precedes a snowstorm or a major weather change, is the ultimate feeding trigger. The pike's swim bladder tells it that the environment is becoming unstable, and this often kicks their feeding instinct into high gear. It's a primal urge to feed heavily before the bad weather hits. This is the dinner bell. Think about the last time you were on the ice and the wind picked up, the sky turned a leaden grey, and you could just feel the weather changing. Most anglers see that as their cue to pack up and go home. That is a massive mistake. Let's visualize this. You've been on the ice since dawn. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. and you haven't had a single bite. The forecast calls for snow to start around 4. You see other fishermen starting to pack up their gear to beat the storm. Your instinct is to join them, but instead you stay, you recheck your baits, you stay vigilant. That period, from 2 o'clock until the first snowflakes start to fall, is often the most productive 2-hour window of the entire week. The dropping pressure has signaled to every pike in your oxygen-rich, well-lit spot that it's time to eat, and it's time to eat now. The anglers who understand this secret are the ones who consistently catch giants while everyone else is already at home, complaining about how slow the fishing was. So let's put the complete secret together. It's not one single thing. It's a powerful trifecta of conditions that must align. It's about finding a location with superior amounts of dissolved oxygen, often from an inlet or current. Then, within that zone, it's about identifying a key visual ambush point, like a shadow line created by snow cover. And finally, it's about being on that exact spot during a period of falling barometric pressure, which acts as the trigger. Oxygen plus light plus pressure. And that is the formula. When you find a spot where all 3 of these elements converge, you have found the pike fishing equivalent of a gold mine. You've moved beyond luck and superstition and into the realm of a calculated, repeatable strategy. How do you apply this on your next trip? It starts at home. Stop just looking at old fishing spots on your map. Instead, look for the subtle features that create these conditions. Where are the creek inlets? Where are the narrows? Where are the underwater springs marked? These are your new starting points. Forget the giant, featureless deep basin in the middle of the lake. Your new focus should be on these smaller, often overlooked areas that provide life support for the entire ecosystem. You need to completely remap your understanding of the lake, looking at it through the lens of oxygen, not just depth contours. This homework is what separates a successful day from a cold, boring one. Once you're on the ice, your next job is to read the surface. Pay attention to the snow. Don't just walk out to your spot. Look for those transition zones. Where does a deep snowdrift end and a patch of clear black ice begin? Use your GPS to mark that edge. This is a piece of structure just as important as a rock pile or a weed bed. Drill a series of holes directly on that shadow line. You're not just drilling randomly anymore. You are strategically placing your baits along a known ambush corridor. You are setting a trap based on how the pike actually uses its environment to hunt. This simple act of observing the snow on the ice can make a world of difference. And finally, you must become a student of the weather. Download a reliable barometer app on your phone and check it obsessively in the days leading up to your trip. Don't just look at the temperature or whether it will be sunny. Look for the trend in the barometric pressure. You are searching for a pattern, a period of stability followed by a steady, consistent drop. Plan your trip to coincide with that drop. Be on your spot with your baits in the water before and during that pressure change. This might mean fishing on a Tuesday afternoon instead of a sunny Saturday morning. The trophy pike doesn't care about your work schedule. It cares about the pressure. Being willing to fish in what most people consider bad weather is often the price of admission for catching the biggest fish of the season. Let's put it all together in a final, real-world scenario. Instead of joining the crowd in the 40-foot community hole, you've done your homework. You're set up in just 12 feet of water, 100 yards away from a tiny, barely moving creek inlet. You've noticed a massive snowdrift on the ice, and you've placed all your tip-ups right on its eastern edge, where the morning sun creates a sharp shadow line. The barometer has been dropping steadily all morning, and the sky is getting dark. It's dead quiet. Then, just as the first flurries begin to fall, your outside flag pops, then another. This isn't luck. This is the secret in action. You have put the trifecta together: oxygen, light, and pressure. And you are being rewarded while everyone else is already on their way home. So there you have it. The great secret of midwinter pike isn't a magic lure or a secret color. It's a fundamental shift in understanding their behavior. It's realizing they are not lazy, deep-water slugs. They are highly strategic survivors, desperately seeking oxygen, expertly using light, and reacting violently to changes in pressure. The real aha moment is that the places most anglers avoid and the weather most anglers run from are precisely the keys to success. Your entire approach to winter pike fishing can now change. You'll stop fishing memories and historical spots, and you'll start fishing the current, real-time conditions. You will spend far less time waiting and far more time strategically targeting fish that are primed to feed. Thank you so much for watching and for letting me share this with you. If this video blew your mind or gave you a new perspective, do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. It truly helps the channel out. Now, I want to hear from you. What is the one dead of winter rule that you have always followed? And after watching this, are you going to break it on your next trip? Let's get a good debate going in the comments below.